Hey everyone, welcome to Maniacs Unfiltered. I'm Charles and Tommy's with me. Uh, Today we're going to talk about denial. Uh, Not just of, you know, denial comes in a lot of different flavors. It could be, oh, I don't need any help to, I don't know, maybe saying it wasn't that bad what I did uh, especially if you keep relapsing into drug use or not taking your meds, you know, I don't know. Some people think there's nothing wrong with them, right? Then it's uh, like for me personally, uh, it'll be like, oh, that bad thing happened, but it's not a big deal, or it'll somehow feed into me being, not that mentally ill. Uh, I don't know. Tell me, what about you? Have you ever confronted your problems with just like not thinking you had a problem?
Oh yeah. um and mine's a double-edged sword cuz you know, I have issues with substances, and when I'm abusing a substance that feeds into my mania, now I got two problems.
Right.
And yeah, this takes me back quite a few years ago. Um and I remember seeing a psychiatrist, and she was diagnosing me with ADHD. And although there might be something there, and I think we've talked about this before in an episode, but bipolar just trumps that. Because a lot of the symptoms or behaviors parallel. And but I remember I was in the clinic, and she was a little apprehensive about it, but as soon as she mentioned Adderall, a light bulb clicked in my head. I'm like, Adderall equals fun. So the next time I went in this session, I did my homework, and I pretty much uh, exaggerated all the symptoms that would lead me to getting a prescription of Adderall. Um, and sometimes that's where is denial and delusion are they're kind of like salt and pepper, man, ketchup and mustard, because they really play off each other. And
Yeah.
I just remember getting the script, popping them, and the next time I seen her, I'm like, wow, like I'm amazed at how much better I'm focusing, and I'm being more productive. But it just seemed after a couple of weeks, it just started losing some of its effects, And oh yeah, we'll just increase it. Ah, that's a great idea, And that's where my manipulative behavior comes in. And I'm just being honest. And I know that sounds real egotistical, but I try not to be that way anymore. In fact, I try to be 100% honest with my doctor. But at the time, I was in denial. And my family really started noticing radical changes. And I supplemented the Adderall with a lot of marijuana. So, I mean, I was riding a 30-foot wave, man, and I felt on top of the world. And I remember it started off kind of good. My employers they were seeing I was being a lot more productive. But with that combination, I started becoming easily irritable and almost verbally violent. Not so much violent, but very
Combative.
combative. Perfect word. Um, and I remember like the vice president of the company one time took me into his office, and he's like, "Hey, Tom, listen, I'm gonna be straight up with you. We like you. You got a drug problem." And I got real defensive, and I'm like, "A drug problem? I get this from a psychiatrist. I'm ADHD and da 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 da. I don't have a problem. And I just got real defensive. And I was in total denial because the delusion, I felt so good. The delusion that I needed this stuff overpowered my better judgment. And I was in complete denial. And I was starting to really damage all the relationships I had, my wife, my family, coworkers, and I was totally oblivious to it. Um, what about you, Charles? Like, you relating to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just weird how fast the the delusions can come in and just be like, oh, uh, never mind all my prior experience. I got this now. Like you people don't know anything. I'm gonna do something cool. I'm gonna change the weather or some shit. Like you guys are just, you know,
I'm on to something here, ladies and gentlemen.
exactly.
I'm
And
going into the laboratory.
right, right. I think that sort of mindset actually can apply to a lot of mental ill people because, like, I mean, you and I, it's not like we ever like lost sense of what the reality is, right? Like, I mean, like,
Maybe speak for yourself there.
or I mean, like, I'm saying, it's just added on for me, like a whole different world got added on to like the reality, and I'm like, oh, I can I can not care about the real reality since I have this other one. Uh,
Yeah, when you're living in the Maniac amusement park, it's hard to see that we're operating at a totally different level.
yeah,
And for me, it makes me very social, and it kind of melts away a lot of my, sometimes I get social anxiety, but when I'm manic, oh baby, I'll strike up a conversation with anyone.
yeah,
And it feels fluent to me. However, I don't really know if it was or not, but most people I talk to would be very receptive or even seem captivated. And my psychiatrist even said, she's like, you could be rather charming when you're manic.
right.
And
And that
I
just
think,
adds to not wanting to come back out of it, right?
yeah, it's like, oh shit, you're saying I'm more likable when I'm manic? Well,
I mean,
that
just
it
all this stuff,
starts that way.
yeah, all this stuff us maniacs have managed to get done while under the influence is pretty. It can be pretty remarkable,
It can. It can until it all falls apart.
right? And it
And
will, right? Like
it
you can't
you
stay
can't
manic forever,
yeah, you can't sustain it. It and it's it's one of the biggest mysteries of mental health. It really is. I mean, it baffles. I mean, they may act like they understand it, but it it's baffling to them.
yeah. I mean, I can be in the mental hospital for a a week straight and still be like, yeah, still believe all the crazy shit I came in believing, because it's self-sustaining, uh,
Yeah, and like you said, it's like your universe expands.
right. It's like,
Um
oh, these poor people don't see what I see, or like imagine what I imagine, sort of thing.
yeah, for me it turns into like I remember my first involuntary stay, and I mean, in hindsight when I look at it, I was in a locked psychiatric unit being observed and had the basic necessities, room and board, food, you know, little activities, and I was totally content. I'm like, this is great. Like everything I did was great. Like I remember I found a Spanish Bible and I was learning Spanish trying to read the Bible like I'm deciphering the mysteries of the universe.
Right,
This Bible was here specifically for me,
right. And
you
it's
know.
crazy. Yeah. like it's crazy like how long it can sustain itself, basically, and under what circumstances, you know. Uh,
And that's where I think the after you have that, and this is something that you kind of revealed to me when you have that final psychotic break where you go into a psychosis and you lose touch with reality. At least that's what happens to me. I didn't realize I don't instantly get depressed. I
right.
kind of it's now it's sort of like I'm tapering down a little bit, but I'm still feeling great, you know. Um
Exactly. Exactly.
but then for me it's like a switch where all of a sudden I get that sudden realization. It's almost like a freight train that just finally bam smashes into a concrete wall and just derails. And then that's where my depression starts. And that depression starts because you start realizing it was all a delusion. And I think that's why, for me, I only ever had one massive major depression because I thought that I was going to be manic forever. And I didn't even know I was manic. I just thought I have arrived. This is life. This is what Buddha must have felt. Like
Yeah,
I
dude.
just thought I unlocked something in my mind.
I've hit enlightenment so many times. You know, it's
Exactly. Some kind of delusional enlightenment. And maybe there is a a sparkle of true enlightenment, but it can't be sustained. It's almost like an unstable element that it's here and it just flickers away like some pixie dust,
right, and
you
it's
know?
it can be hard, like once you come out of it, to like justify or place what happened to you into like a nice box that allows you to to make sense of your life. That's how it is for me. It's like I want I want everything to like add up to, oh, I'm an okay person, you know. But if you
Yeah.
if I have all these gaps in my story or all these times where I went backwards, it's like, oh my god. Uh, and then it makes you just want to like give up and go back in, you know.
I
But
mean, we've talked about it before.
yeah,
Like it's hard for us to tolerate that depression because we know that there are measures we could take
yeah.
to jumpstart the party again.
Because I mean, we'll be deep in that mental hospital in the padded room or wherever, and we'll be feeling better than any sort of depressed state, right?
Uh,
That's
fuck
and
yeah.
that's just kind of the truth about it. So
I mean, I remember that first room they had just a bogus ass selection. I mean, they had VHS tapes. And I remember like and it's so weird because like that mania, that excitement becomes almost infectious. Like I remember I said, "We're having a movie night tonight." And I got all the patients in there all excited and shit. We're watching Indiana Jones. And I got everybody settled in, even some of the staff. And I'm like, "We need popcorn in here. And what about soda tonight? Can we get some pop in here?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know, Tom. The sugar and the come on, look at all these folks in here. They're down. We need this." And I actually convinced the staff to do it. And and it's like by the end of the movie, we're laughing, we're cheering, and we're watching fucking Indiana Jones, like some old ass VHS, on raggedy ass chairs.
yeah,
And it was exciting. Now, fast forward a month later when I'm depressed, I'd rather fucking stick a gun in my mouth than watch that movie.
yeah, yeah. You just said it perfectly.
It's almost like you're trying to spread the 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 ecstasy. You just have this aura around you.
Right.
And then when you start to crack, it's almost like they all start turning on you.
Hmm.
They're like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah. or like you can't get any like advice out of them. Like that's how I always feel. Like, oh, even if they're nice, even if, if they're my family, it's like, you know, there's not much ammunition there for this sort of problem that I'm facing.
Hey, I'll give you, I'll give you, yeah, I'll give you a, this one's kind of a funny one. So when I was in there, I was pretty convinced that if I tried to talk hard enough telepathically, I would start a movement on the ward. And I remember one of the therapists sat me down and she's like, Tom, what are you doing? And I'm sitting there in my mind, I'm like, I know you can hear me. Unlock what's in your mind. Be free. Now this, I'm saying all this in my mind. I'm like, we don't need to move our lips like we're apes anymore. We're
Oh yeah,
ascending. We're ascending to a new humanity. We're reaching the peak of our intellectual
evolution.
design. Yeah, evolution. There we go. And I just remember sitting there, and they're so. What's so funny is they try. Bless their hearts, they try, but like she just she didn't get it. She didn't get it, and like I remember, she asked me, she's like, Tom, do you sometimes think you're an actor in a movie? And I'm just like, all of a sudden, my shoulders just drop down, like, they just don't get it.
Right, right.
They just don't get it. They try to look for these like practical, like textbook, uh,
It,
uh,
sayings. You're
yeah, sayings, or like they're
like,
looking for some kind of explanation for what this is, but
right,
they're so far off from what we're experiencing that after a while it becomes discouraging to even talk about it,
right.
your psychiatrist or your therapist, because you're like, they're not going to understand. How do you even put it into words?
Yeah.
You can't.
Dude, I've had times where I was like, "Oh, they all know I'm Jesus. I just have to, I have to just like
Right?
just show them how to deal with it." It's like,
Yeah, that exactly. That's what my see. I was more of a prophet. I was the next prophet, and if I stayed silent enough, I figured they would all start understanding it. And
right,
and what was weird, there was another part where I had a chaplain come in, cause see, then I started playing the hospital against them because the hospital was I'm shit. I almost said the name of it, but it was like a Catholic operated hospital. So here you got a lot of therapists and psychiatrists that are probably more agnostic or atheist, but yet they're working at a Catholic hospital. So the first thing I do is I ask for the chaplain. So, the chaplain comes in and I bring him to the side and I say, listen, man, I've been spoken to. And I start like putting in verses, in the Bible, and I'm reading it all. And, and I'll never forget the chaplain's like, Tom, that's really great. But I don't think you want to be like one of those guys at the airport screaming about the apocalypse is coming. And then I told him, I was like, I need the Eucharist every day. Well, they kind of had to oblige because here they are, a Catholic hospital, and I'm asking for that. And I just remember the guy came in, and then I started getting people to pray before we ate. I got the staff to start praying because the chaplain would be in there. I'd be like, Father, will you say grace? And the staff would sit down and then we would pray, and they were so uncomfortable.
yeah,
And, and it was fucked up. I'm fucked up. Now, this is not shit I would do now. I'm giving you insight into that when we're very manic like that, these delusions of grandeur, they get intense and we
oh
really believe it. We
yeah,
really believe it, man.
yeah. And it would help. Wouldn't it have helped if like at least one person like understood what it was rather than just like you said, like the actor in the movie shit, you know?
Well, you know what though? There was one girl there. She was this Spanish housekeeper, and she was really excited because I was trying to learn Spanish and I was reading the Bible with her, and she would be the first one to sit down at the table and do the prayers with us. And she was all about it until he came in with the Eucharist, and all of a sudden I stood up on a chair and I was like, "Oh, Father, who art in heaven," and I took my shirt off. "Hallowed be thy name," and like I just started getting crazy, and everybody's just like, it all of a sudden we didn't pray anymore at dinner.
Oh,
they shut that down. um I started seeing the syringe coming around the corner, and I'm like, all right, I better cut this out.
dude, that reminds me, like on one of my mental hospitals, there was like this like Colombian intern. She was like around 50 or so, and she just struck up like a friendship with me, and we would like I don't know why. If she was just bored or what, but you made me you reminded me of her. Uh,
Yeah, because it's especially someone that it's English is not their native language. They already feel a little bit like outcasts.
yeah,
So I think they sort of they I feel those are some of the most understanding. It's the janitors and the housekeepers, and those are the ones in the techs.
right,
Those are your friends when you're on the inside, when you're in the joint.
yeah. Uh, man,
You know.
I've been to
Um,
how many mental hospitals have you been to for like I don't know total
um.
or how many separate instances of being in a mental hospital?
Well, not as many as you would think. There was one involuntary, and then there was one voluntary because I felt not. It's not like I wanted to commit suicide, but I had some suicidal thoughts that were starting to scare me.
Right.
So I kind of checked myself in. And that one was a total different experience. That was horrid. I mean,
Were you just
that,
depressed? Or,
yeah, I was so depressed. I felt like I was in prison. I mean, the most exciting thing, and that was a totally different hospital that it really did feel like you were in a prison. Like the most exciting thing we did all day was we marched, and there was no outside time.
oh man,
So there'd be this part of the day where we would march down the hallway. That was our exercise. It was like lining up and marching.
you
And
couldn't walk. You couldn't walk up and down, or like at
uh,
will.
no, I mean I guess you could, but everybody you had to do it as a group. It
Really?
was it was fucked up, man. I was just trying to survive minute by minute.
Yeah.
It's like nothing was I couldn't do anything. I mean, there were books like when I'm manic, I could read books like a fool. But when I'm depressed, I could barely read, one article out of a newspaper without just fuck my life, you know?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the sad moral of our current podcast is depression sucks. Like it's
Depression sucks. But you will get out of it. I promise you, you will get out of it. And, if it's very clinical, you're definitely going to need some meds. And
yeah,
you and I think somebody that has very clinical depression probably has some very deep, dark, underlying traumas that they need to work out. And that's where I believe in therapy. I know Charles and I our opinions differ on that, but I think therapy can help that. When you're just chronically depressed for years, I mean, I feel for you. Like if that's something you go through, my
yeah,
God,
yeah.
uh,
That's terrible.
I can't imagine it because my longest depression was probably only about 3, 4 months, and it was unbearable. Like, it would just be waking up in the morning just wondering how I'm going to get from minute to minute, just pacing in my house, just turning on the TV and nothing. I couldn't even get into any show. Like, I would watch a show for 2 minutes and I'd just be like, uh, nope, 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 nope. Just, just nothing can grab my attention. Nothing. All I can do is morbidly reflect on how horrible my life is. And it's so bizarre because I've lived in the same house for 10 years and I've experienced joy and happiness and I've experienced, the lowest of the lows. And what changes? The environment doesn't change. It's the same four walls, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Charles? It's strange.
Yeah. It's the cycle or uh,
It's it's deep inside of you. It's
right.
your inner self that tells you you're not happy. It's almost like this entity inside of you telling you how to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and,
I don't
and
know.
it's almost instant, right? Like when you get depressed, it's like it takes over every part of your brain, seemingly.
Everything. It takes and it just sucks your energy. I mean, I would sit on the couch looking at a garbage can all day long like,
Yeah.
all right,
Like
Tom, just walk 10 steps, tie that bag, go down 5 stairs. You can do it. Nah, nah, fuck that. Do it later. Do it later. Just every little task is so arduous.
yeah.
Yeah. And just, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we're painting a good dark portrait of depression, but it's, and that's that stark contrast, it, it's hard to, you got to have dark and light. That's what makes a painting beautiful.
Yeah. You know what? The depression thing has me thinking, like if you're depressed for years, right? It's like that because like if we're manic for a certain amount of time, we usually sort of pay that off with some depression or some, you know, misanthropy of some sort. But it's like, when do the depressed get their, their break even? Are they just like, are they just screwed? Like, I don't.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a very fascinating statement there. You're right. If you're depressed for 3 years, shouldn't there be a polarizing opposite of happy and joy for 3 years?
Right? Because
Where's
that's
where's the payoff?
yeah, exactly.
Because you
That's like
can't you can't sustain mania for 3 years. It's impossible.
yeah, it's like dude, I would try literally everything to get out of a depression if I was stuck there. Like, I'd almost rather be back in the mental hospital than like living a depressed life.
Yeah, that's what always draws me back to marijuana, even though I know it always ends bad.
Yeah,
It may, and it's such a roll of the dice because sometimes I could toke it up for months and live in a state of you know kind of a hippie carefree existence, and then all of a sudden the same. It's not like I changed brands or strains. It's just all of a sudden it'll just hit me and it'll just spiral me into an instant episode. Now, when you talk about, I may have only really been to two mental hospitals and one long-term stay, a residential stay, but I have spent many nights in the ER psychotic, and usually once they kind of get me stable, a lot of times
they
I
just
have,
turn you loose.
yeah, I have like a 24-hour turnaround.
Nice.
I kind of get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, mental hospitals, like, they suck, but if you depending on how you get in there, be a different experience.
They
Like that.
serve a purpose.
Yeah, man.
What's your count? How many have you been to? Oh, there's three. There's three. I forgot about one.
Uh,
When I had my ambient experience, um, pissing in a closet. My wife, she she felt that that was time to go.
yeah, yeah. I've had about 4.5 to 5 long stays or longish stays in mental hospitals. Uh, it's like, and it's always kind of bad. Like you always just find yourself pacing and like, get me out of here. I don't know.
And is it just me, or is it always like, especially the involuntary ones? Like I get this delusion that, I'll go up to like the head nurse at night or whatever, and I'll just kind of say, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this, but I chose to be here, so I've decided
You decided that you're good to go.
I'm good. I'm good, ma'am. It's time to go. And they just kind of look at you, Tommy, why don't you just have a little water and take a seat? I'll bring you a little cup of orange juice.
Yeah,
And it's like, don't you know who I am?
yeah, man.
And then there's that realization that you are stuck.
Yeah.
And then you ever get those ideas of escaping?
Not really. Just because it's pretty
You
tough
don't,
to escape one of those.
yeah, and you don't make it far.
Yeah.
You don't make it far. I remember one time though, just with my electrical background, I noticed that there was a door that I was trying everything in my power to find a Phillips screwdriver and even a pair of scissors, and I could have bypassed that door magnet lock, and then that stairwell led right to the outside, and I would have been home free. But it was difficult finding a Phillips screwdriver in a mental ward.
Yeah. Dude, what is it like? I feel like half the places I've been to take your laces, and half of them don't care. Like, I don't know, like from your shoes.
Yeah, I usually got the old yellow socks
Uh, yeah,
with the
like,
pad
yeah,
with the
the
rubber
non-slip shit.
ankles. Yeah, the non-slips.
Yeah,
Um,
I always thought that was kind of what's the word?
Demoralizing.
Ratchet. Yeah, exactly. Just, just like a fucking concentration.
Or like I remember the time I really came in whacked out of my mind. They they're like, all right, you got to put on these scrubs or whatever, and so I take my shirt off, take my jeans off. The nurse comes back, and I put the gown on or whatever,
Yeah,
and she's like, "Sir, you got to take your underwear off." And it's like, why? I'm not in here for a physical medical thing. Like, what are you gonna do? Put a fucking um you, why? Why do I have to be naked under here? What the fuck? You know?
yeah, yeah. That sort of shit can be demoralizing.
Yeah. And then you try to tie it on. They're like, you need help? Oh, great. Now you get to look at my butt cheeks while you're tying me up. Fuck. Yeah, come on. I can't get it.
Yeah, man, what a life.
Hey, it's more exciting than just the 9 to 5.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that went a whole lot of directions. What was the original topic?
denial.
Denial.
Yeah, like because there's all like wherever you go, right? Like whether it's like on the street, uh, uh, I don't know. It seems like it's like half and half, right? Like half the people kind of figure they're fucked, and the other half are like, "Oh